Being resentful of my husband's reflexive anger during newborn nighttime pumping/feeds. My 32F husband, 35M, and I have a 3 weeks old newborn. My milk supply has been low, so I've been pumping every 2 to 3 hours. The arrangement my husband and I agreed to was that he and I would both wake up for the first feeding/pump session, where he would go feed the baby a bottle and I would focus on pumping. The issue is that my husband has insomnia and can't fall asleep easily. To mitigate this, I'll wear sleep headphones and will listen for the baby's cries when he's hungry. My husband's ask is for me to wake him up when this occurs, so that he can help and I can focus on pumping. However, when I do gently wake up my husband at the time that he asks me to, it's like a knee-jerk reaction for him to be angry. He'll complain loudly that he just fell asleep minutes ago, slap the bed with his fist or open hand in anger, then stomp off to tend to the baby. After which, he'll cool off, start singing and put on his cute voice with the baby, and otherwise be okay. Meanwhile, I'm left feeling horrible, feeling guilty for waking him up, to the point where I don't want to wake him up because I'd rather just take care of everything myself than deal with him being pissy. Last night, I told him how these outbursts make me feel. That I'm afraid to wake him up because of them. His response was that this reaction is a reflex, no different to how a knee pops up when struck with a hammer, and that I need to just accept that this response is an inevitability. Well, it's 2 a.m. now. I wake him up, he does his same angry song and dance, and I go to pump. After he gets over his burst, he comes out being positive and happy, trying to lightly joke about how this really pissed me off and that I really couldn't get over it. Admittedly, I tell him passive-aggressively that I'm over it, but maintain a shortness with him. He gets angry again, stating that of course, between the two of us, he's the one who can't sleep, but I'm the one who's entitled to wear the angry witch face. He takes the baby to the bedroom and slams the door. After he's done feeding the baby, I tell him that I'm going to sleep outside for the night, and he asks me again to wake him up when the baby wakes up. He adds, verbatim, "Can you just ignore my being mad for the first 15 seconds after you wake me up? I've done a good job here, and I feel like I'm owed that. I need you to be a big girl." I feel resentful of the fact that the burden is on me to get over his outbursts. However, I do also recognize that his bursts are short-lived, and that he is waking up to help me during an otherwise difficult time where both of us aren't getting sleep. He does do a great job of supporting us and my emotional well-being during the rest of the day, so I may be the a-hole for harboring this resentment. I need some outside perspective on whether he has a point and if I should extend him owed grace for this issue. Comment 1. NTA: This is the hardest time as new parents, and both of you have personal challenges adding to the difficulty. Both of you are exhausted and it's expected that patience will be thin and emotions will be more difficult to control. As someone who has dealt with insomnia, I can empathize with his despair of just having fallen asleep only to be woken. However, he shouldn't be using terms like big girl when you are expressing sensitivity to his reaction. He should simply apologize each time to you if it really is involuntary. Tell him that your response to his outbursts are involuntary as well. Comment 2. I'm going NTA here. Stop waking him up. The stress his anger, even though it is involuntary, is causing you is damaging. Tell him that he doesn't get to tell you to be a big girl when you are the one having to deal with his outbursts. You are sleep deprived and emotional for a very valid reason. This is making things worse for you. There are so many ways he can help, this way is not working for you and your emotional well-being. Comment 3. NTA. What happens if in a few years he falls asleep on the couch, and your child accidentally wakes him up? Would it still be an involuntary reaction if your husband shouted or hit things in front of your child and scared them? Or hit your child instead since he's admitted he can't control his angry outbursts? Honestly, I would stop waking him up. He doesn't get to gaslight and belittle you. He wants recognition for doing a good job when he can't even do it without being an angry, abusive little boy. Calling my mom out in front of my daughter and the whole house. My 45F mother, 71, lives with me and my family, but we have a very strained relationship. I try to be as respectful as possible to her, but I do not tolerate any of her BS. For context, when resolving conflicts in my home, we talk it out with the members of the conflict only. For example, if my oldest gets into trouble for something, either her father or myself will deal with it privately and not involve other members of the household. This is the situation. My oldest daughter, 19, has experienced some significant weight loss for reasons unknown. We are currently working with doctors for this issue, and she's become a little self-conscious about it. I overheard my mother make a comment to her about how thin she was. I walked into the room and asked my daughter to please go to her room, and she did. I then politely told my mother to keep her comments to herself as it is uncomfortable for my daughter. She acted offended but agreed to not say anything. A couple of weeks later, I heard her say something again to my daughter, and I again told her not to do that after my daughter left the room. She told me she was just concerned, and I said that was fine, but if she wants to voice her opinion she can talk to me, but stop making comments to my daughter. Once again she agreed and I left it alone. Then today I heard her again and I just lost my shit on her in front of my daughter and basically the whole house. I yelled at her to stop fucking making comments about my daughter's body. I asked you politely and privately twice now, and obviously you don't to listen. This is beyond concern, and at this point you're body shaming her, and I will not tolerate it. If you cannot control your mouth, then you need to leave my home. She left the room with her crocodile tears and went to her room. She later came to me and said I humiliated her when she was just concerned, and the way I treat her is why my kids don't respect her. I told her no, my kids don't respect her because of all the horrible things she has done to me, and she tried to protest, but I just walked away. I do feel a little bad for yelling at her in front of everybody, but damn, I feel like she forced my hand. I do not regret what I did, and I don't think I was the R, but I'm biased, so. Comment 1. NTA. She was respectfully asked multiple times to keep her comments to herself. Her failure to respect your daughter's feelings resulted in her feelings being disrespected. Further, it may have done your daughter some good to see her mom sticking up for her. Comment 2. NTA. You politely asked her multiple times to stop making comments. If she were that concerned, she could have approached you privately, not continued to make hurtful comments in front of your daughter. Also, I gather from your post she lives with you and you're likely helping care for her physically and/or financially, and you are a grown woman, in your home, looking out for your daughter. You're not a child yelling at her mom over something trivial. I hope your daughter finds out what is causing her rapid weight loss and is able to rectify that. Comment 3. NTA. But dear God, teach your child Ren to stand up for themselves. Your 19-year-old shouldn't be afraid to voice her opinions to her grandmother. After the first time she said something to your daughter, you should have talked to your daughter and said, I talked to your grandmother about how inappropriate those comments are. If she makes those kinds of comments again, you have my permission to stand up to her. The whole have my permission is due to elder respect and all that jazz. Telling my mom if she wanted to help she'd do the one thing I'm asking? I'm 20F. Myself and my 4-week-old daughter recently left an undesirable situation and we have almost nothing. I have a handful of clothes for my daughter, and some necessities. The place we're staying provides food but nothing else, and the charity available to me is very backed up at the moment. My mom is swearing she'll help me in any way possible. My daughter is growing out of her clothes. I only have one spare outfit and none of my own necessities. I've asked my mom if her and my dad would be able to return to my house and get me a few bits of mine, including clothes for both of us, some cash I had hidden, my iPad which I use for college so I don't fall further behind and get kicked out, and new daughter's stroller and bassinet. My mom came up with a lot of excuses such as she doesn't have time, or she's got plans every day for the next week, or my dad is working but she does want to help. I've been really stressed over the last number of days and I ended up lashing out at my mother and told her, shut up because you keep telling me you want to help me, but if you really wanted to, you do the one thing I'm asking and not just say you want to help like everyone else. She got really upset and said she's doing her best, to which I replied, "You're not doing anything, how is that your best?" She's not speaking to me at the moment and my dad is angry at me for snapping at my mom. He thinks I'm in a hole because she was trying to help me and I lashed out at her over it. I'm really not sure how to feel right now because my head and hormones is all over the place. Comment 1. NTA. Coming out of an abusive relationship, you're rightfully emotional. Your mom just doesn't get it. But you're asking her to go into danger now, and that's not right either. Maybe come up with a plan where you get a police escort with both parents there to get what you need. I know, returning to that can feel insurmountable, I've been there. But if what you need is so important, you'll find a way, otherwise you'll find a way without. And don't be so angry at your mom, it's not her fault any more than it was yours. Only your abuser is to blame, and someday I hope you see that. Comment 2. NTA. I don't blame your mom if the reason she doesn't want to go over there is because it could be dangerous. But I am surprised your parents aren't actively trying to help, by having your father and mother and few male friends, relatives to go over there, or getting police to escort you or them to do this. I'd be horrified to find out my 20-year-old daughter escaped a bad situation with her husband with her newborn daughter, my grandbaby, and not want to do anything to help. It's not the ask you were hoping for, but maybe they'd be willing to give you some money. They get a few things for baby and you to tide you over until you can get your actual things. Not uninviting my new dill? My younger son Jake got married to Anne a few years ago. My older son Carl is getting married to Mary in 5 months. Anne and Mary hate each other. It's because of some stupid things that happened back in high school, I don't know much about it. Anyway, I decided to take both my boys and their partners to a trip. When I called Jake and Anne and told them about it, their reaction was no way. We are not going on a trip with Mary. I said I wished they would come, but at the end it's their choice and it's okay that they don't want to come. They got upset because apparently when they said that they meant they want me to uninvite Mary, not them. I told them that I won't uninvite Mary for multiple reasons. She is an amazing person and very fun to be around, while Anne is not that fun, so if I have to choose who to spend my time with, Mary will always be my choice. Jake and Anne have no right to uninvite others from my trip, they can only decline their own invitation. Mary is the newest member of our family and uninviting her will make her feel like she is not a part of our family. Comment 1. I was going to say NTA, but I read your responses to others and YTA. You're flippant about why the girls hate each other and don't care to find out. You equate it to braiding each other's hair. You sound like a D, so I'm going to assume you are one. Yes, you're right, they don't get to dictate who's on the trip, but you saying you prefer Mary is picking a side. Find out what happened, it may surprise you. Comment 2. NTA. They can either not go on a family trip or can go and be civil. Neither party will give an explanation, so there is no way to know if these high school events were serious or petty nonsense. And you are right. They will need to learn to be in the same room together. Are Mary and your son not going to Anne's wedding or any holidays? Comment 3. NTA. You're caught between a rock and a hard place. Whatever happened between the women, they are in each other's lives now because of your sons. You need to try and stay neutral unless you want to alienate your sons. Unfortunately, I think this will happen regardless, but at least you'll know, you tried. I hope for the sake of the family they can learn to be civil to one another. Sadly, I don't think they will, and it'll end up coming between your sons.
Not stopping a vegan from eating non-vegan food. I eat a lot of plant-based foods for health reasons. I'm not a vegetarian/vegan, but from the outside it does seem that way. I bring lunch from home to the office to eat, and it's always a lot of vegetables, tofu, etc., and no visible meat, but at the same time it's not vegetarian or vegan, because I might cook it in meat-based broths, use fish sauce, sometimes it's got meat on the inside, just not visible on the outside, or something. A lot of people in the office have made the assumption that I'm vegetarian/vegan, but if they ask me, I always correct them to say I'm not. Recently, there's an office potluck. I brought in some of the food I usually make for myself, all plant-based foods, and no meat, and made it clear it's not for the vegetarian/vegan section. Later on, I see a coworker who I assumed was vegetarian/vegan eat some of the food that I made. As a general personal rule for the office, I don't make comments about people's food habits or diets, so I didn't say anything. Especially because I wasn't 100% sure if they didn't eat meat. Later on, they blamed me for tricking them into eating non-vegan foods. They said that I presented myself in a false manner, as a vegetarian/vegan, and so they assumed that the foods I make would all be vegetarian/vegan. They said that since I saw them eating my food, I should have stopped them. As it turns out, they had put my dish at the edge of the two sections right next to the vegan section. So I could see why she mistook my food for being vegan. I moved it further into the right section, but the damage was done. Comment 1. NTA. Whoever was in charge of the office potluck should have labeled each dish carefully so folks with allergies or dietary preferences were aware before eating anything. Comment 2. NTA. She assumed you were vegetarian. You assumed she was vegetarian. She was mistaken. You might have been mistaken. Unless you knew she was vegetarian and had good reason to think that she wasn't intentionally straying, your lack of comment was not inappropriate.